Welcome to Lesson 2, Chart a Budget. Our objectives today are to determine the frequency of budgeted expenses. In other words, to organize your expenses so that you understand what expenses you have and how often you pay them. We'll be using Excel to organize our expenses into something called a budget matrix, and then we'll use graphical representations to display trends in our budget. Let's look at a budget matrix. So here's a budget matrix checkoff, and all this is just a way to organize your thoughts. These are all my expenses that I might have, and this is how I pay them. Not all expenses are paid each month. Some expenses are paid every quarter, some expenses are paid every 6 months. Trash service is usually paid each quarter. If you have a P.O. box, that's an annual payment. So depending upon what you have, we want to chart and track when we pay those. Same things with, especially with variable expenses, like doctor's visits and things like that, health club dues. Once we have a budget matrix checkoff, we can actually create then our budget matrix. So notice that we have rows and columns. Columns are the months, and then the rows represent our different budget items. And now what we've done is we put in dollar amounts. We've either put in the actual or we've put in an estimate. And the good thing about starting a budget is then as you keep track of it year after year, your estimates become more realistic, and then you can better plan for your future. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go into an Excel and we're going to develop our budget matrix, and then I'm going to show you how we can take that and we can create things like a pie chart or a line graph or a bar graph in order to better analyze our information. So let's go ahead and look in Excel. Okay, so I have created a rough monthly budget, which is some regular budget items that you might have. And then I have either put in the actual, if I know what those are, or maybe made an estimate of what they might be. And notice that some of these are every month, and some of these are not every month, like prescriptions. Maybe I only pay for prescriptions once a quarter. Or, for example, entertainment, I know that I don't go out every single month. Or trash service, for example, like we talked about before. So what I've done is I've put in all my numbers. When you put in your numbers in Excel, you have all these formatting tools up here. So play with those, use those to see how you can make things look better. For example, this 1300 would look better if I click on this comma and format it more as a number. Or you can click on the currency and it will put a $sign there. So what I want to do in order to, let's say, create a pie chart, because as we know with pie charts, sometimes it's better represented by percentages. How much do I spend on rent, for example, as a percent of everything that I spend money on? So the first thing is we want to total every category. So to refresh your memory on that, we start off with an equal sign to do an equation or a formula in Excel. And then I type in sum, because that's what I want to do, is I want to sum. And I want to sum everything from January through December. So in other words, everything in cell D6 right here. So I'm going to click on D6, or I can type it into the cell. I'm going to press the colon, and I'm going to come over here and click on December, and notice it's going to sum everything between D6 and O6. I'll hit an end parentheses and then return, and it gives me my sum. Now I could do that all the way down, but the value of using Excel is that it has powerful math features. One of those is the ability for it to fill a formula down. So to do that, you just select the cell that has the formula you want to fill down. Then I'm going to do Shift arrow key, or you can use your mouse to highlight down as far as you want to fill. And then up in Excel at the very top, you would click on your Edit menu item. You would see a fill, and then I would choose Fill Down versus Right, Up, or Left. Notice it has filled that formula all the way down. And if we look at it, up here we have our formula bar. It tells us what's in our formula. Our first one is D6 through O6. The colon represents through. It represents a range. But if I arrow down to our next cell, it changes it to D7 and then O7. And then D8, O8, and so on and so forth. So that's one of the nice features of Excel. It continues to advance each time. So if I wanted to find out in Excel what percent 15,600 was of the total, well, I would need a complete total. So let's go ahead and put that in, equals sum. I'll select the first cell, highlight what I want to sum, end parentheses, and now I have a total. So in this cell, I could put an equal sign. I could click on the 15,600, hit the backslash for division, and then click on my total. And when I press enter, it tells me that my rent is 60% of what I spend. Now, this wasn't always 60%. This used to be, when I originally did it, 0.6. But remember up here, as I just said, there's lots of great formatting tools. So what I did is I clicked on the percent, and it changed the decimal 0.60 to 60%. So I could fill that down as well. The only thing about filling that down is that I don't want to keep filling this 25,920 down to the next cell, down to the next cell. I would want to freeze that in my formula. If you choose to do percent of total and you want to use the fill down feature, in order to freeze this C19 right here in the formula bar, all you have to do is put in a $ in front of the C and a $ in front of the 19. That freezes that cell in the formula. So that way, if I select that cell and I fill down, I go to Edit, Fill Down, you'll notice in my formulas C7, but it's still C19. C8, still C19. So while the one that I'm dividing increases down each time, the C19 stays the same. Okay, but what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to delete all of these. I'm going to clear these out because this is another thing that's great about Excel is that it can find the percent for you when you do graphs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all my categories as well as the total per category. And we've already made pie charts before, so this is very similar. I just go to Charts, select on pie, and again I like the 3D exploded pie, so I would choose that. And notice that I'm not getting a pie. And the reason is because I have this empty category in between, which it's taking to fill my pie. So if I really want to do my pie, when I highlight, I cannot have empty places in between. So sometimes you can take what you need, cut and paste it into another sheet, like this for example, or you have to get rid of a column that you maybe don't need. So since I'm not going to do my percent here, what I'm going to do is get rid of that category and try again. And now I have my pie chart with all my different budget items. But I don't see any percents on here. In Excel, you have that option though to add percents. If you'll notice here, this chart quick layouts, they have different things here where you can click on percent, and now look what happens. It is automatically calculated that my rent is 60%. This red one, which is my car payment, is 11%, and so on and so forth. So that's the nice thing about Excel, that it has that power. Okay, so back to our presentation. We have effectively created a pie chart without having to do a lot of math because Excel can find these percents out of the total for us. And that sometimes means more to us than just, oh, I spent $2,000 on this or I spent $10,000 on this. Knowing where most of your money is going is kind of important, and percentages help to make it comparable, make it relative. Okay, so if we look at our graphical displays, that's one way to display our information in order to analyze it. That's a pie chart. We also have a line graph, a bar graph, and a budget line. Those are different ways that Excel can depict things in your budget. And we can look at changes over time, such as with a line graph. We can compare things with a bar graph. So that's what I want to do. I want to go ahead and I want to create a bar graph just like this. In this case, these are my health-related expenses. So maybe this is prescriptions, doctor's visits, premium payments. This is what I spend each month. And you can see that, wow, September I spend quite a bit, in December I spend quite a bit. And then I can help you go back and analyze why did I spend that much during those months, and is that consistent year after year? That can help you to budget. So let's go back to Excel and create a bar graph. Here in Excel, what I've done is I've broken apart my food costs. So when I shop, I either shop at the grocery store, I might dine out, Or I may just go by Starbucks and get coffee, or go by a different coffee place, or get some snacks, refreshments. And so I have included those categories separately. So what I want to do based on this is I want to compare each month, though, how I spend my money, as far as do I go out more or spend more on money in January versus February. So I'm going to actually total these first. So again, equal sign, type the word sum, parentheses. I can highlight the area that I want to sum, end parentheses, or I can type in the cell D9 colon through D7 on this one, end parentheses, and that will work the same. The other thing, the third option, is I can select the cell that has the formula that I want to fill, highlight the area that I want to fill, and then remember, go to the edit, fill, and this time I want to fill right. So now I have summed my food. So I'm going to make a chart similar to the one I just showed you so that I can see what I spend each month on total food. So what I'm doing is I'm highlighting my total food. Now I'm not highlighting the months because remember we have things, we have cells in between, so it'll pick that up and it will cause problems. So I'm just highlighting my total food. I will go up to my charts and select the columns, and there's many different styles, but I'm going to go ahead and select a 3D clustered version, which looks like this. Notice I don't have any titles. So remember that if we want to get titles, and I don't have any because I didn't highlight any, I can go to select and I can select which rows or columns I want for titles. So I want category X labels. If I click on that arrow, it gives me an opportunity to highlight where my titles are. So I can highlight that separate. When I'm done, I can just press return and then OK. And now you'll notice it says January, February, March, April, May, June. And I have got titles. I can also change the legend. I can change that as well by going into select. And then here under name, I can type in food costs or whatever title I want to give it. And then notice now up here it actually says food costs. And this can help me to analyze, wow, in April, what's going on? Why do I spend so much money on food in April? Maybe it's spring and I'm going out a lot more. Maybe I took a trip. But then that can help me see, what do I typically spend and what can I do to decrease this? So that's another tool to analyze your expenses. Let's go ahead and look at the last type of visual presentation. Let's look at a line graph. So in this case, there's a line graph representing electric usage in kilowatt hours, and you can see which months are the highest. That can also help you to plan. So let's try that in Excel. So what we have here in Excel is we have our food costs again, our monthly food costs. This time I want to compare, where do I spend my money? Do I go to the grocery store? Do I dine out? Do I go to Starbucks a lot? I want to compare these to each other. Since these are all together, what I can do is I can highlight my months and I can highlight my categories as well as my numbers. And I can use my line chart here and I can pick, again, whatever line I want. I can do a marked line. I can just do a regular line. I'm going to go ahead and do a marked line. And then you can see here that it inserts the months, and that's because I highlighted them to be in my graph. It also inserts the categories, and again, that's because I highlighted those. And then it charts where I spend the money. So it looks like I definitely spend more money on groceries versus dining out. But notice in this month, I didn't spend as much on groceries, but I spent more dining out. Maybe there's a correlation there because I didn't buy as many groceries, I was eating out more, and that's why that makes up that difference. Same thing with the last month here in July. I spent a lot more on groceries, but notice that my dining out dips. So these visual displays are really good at helping us to analyze our budgets, to see trends, and to come up with plans for our future. So my goal for you with this lesson is to really start to introduce you to Excel, the power of Excel, and for you to use Excel as a tool to help you when you're budgeting.